and just in today I'm going to be doing my monthly recommendations for January. It's a bit late because I'm filming this on the 8th, like 9th, whatever, so it's a bit late, but it's here. So this month is fantasy, and I've split it into 3 different categories, so let's just get started. The first category of books are the ones I mention every single time I do these videos, and those are mostly fantasy books that I just mention on all of them because they seem to fit with all of them. And so firstly, there's Fearsome Dreamer by Laura Eve. It's a mix between sci-fi and fantasy. It has both elements and it's brilliant. So good, and I definitely recommend it to anybody, which is why I always put in these videos. The second one is the Vanishing Girl series by Laura Tallahassee. It is amazing. It's a bit new adult-y and has a few sex scenes, so if you're not comfortable with that, then it's not a book for you. And it's about a girl who can teleport, and she gets taken by the government to this training organisation, and she's trying to escape. And the last one that I mention all the time is The Beautiful and the Cursed, and this is a series that I describe as being like the Infernal Devices with gargoyles instead of demons. And yeah, it's really great. There's great romance. I like the triple point of view that we get. It's just really good. The next category are the more popular books that I think you've probably read if you're into fantasy books, but I think are staples if you've not read fantasy a lot. And first is Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. Those covers are beautiful, and if you don't want them on your shelf, I don't know what's wrong with you because they're beautiful. And yeah, so that's first. Secondly, the story inside is amazing. I don't want to say too much about it because I think it's one that's better off learning as you go, but it's a high fantasy and it's brilliant. It's really good. It's a urban fantasy as well because it's set in our world. It's about a girl who lives in Prague and she was brought up by monsters, and she has blue hair and it grows out her hair blue. It's really good. Next is An Ember in the Ashes, which is one I read last year when it first came out, and it was so good. It has a dual point of view between a girl and a boy, and it's about this school that trains the next sort of the army in this world, and they all have to wear these masks that stick to the faces, and it's really weird. And the girl is from a rebel organisation who infiltrates this place, and we hear from both their point of views, and they meet and their stories overlap throughout it, but they're not entwined with each other, and there's no romance, basically no romance, and the romance that there is doesn't interfere with the plot at all. It's just sort of there for a little bit, but it's really good. It's a really different book than I've read before. Next is The Winner's Curse, and everybody is loving The Winner's Curse at the minute now that The Winner's Kiss is going to be coming out this year, and I'm so excited for The Winner's Kiss. This is a political fantasy about 2 worlds that were at war, and one of the countries took the other one and now puts its people in slavery. It's about Kestrel, who is from a high-ranking family, and her father says that she either has to get married or join the army. She doesn't want to do either, and she ends up buying a slave in an auction, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say because it's really good, and I really think you should read it. The romance is just amazing. Really loved it when I was reading it, and I read them both really soon after each other, I think. And the last one is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and I did not think that I would be putting this on this list because before I read Carry On, I thought it was just going to be a romance with a bit of fantasy in, and that wasn't going to be its point. But the romance is there, and yeah, it's the point. But the fantasy world is so well developed that you'd think that Rainbow Rowell wrote fantasy all the time, and the world is so different from other things that I've read, and I love the focus on like colloquialisms in the spells and words that people use affecting how the magic is perceived, and I really enjoyed that. And the next category of books is the less talked about books. Some of these on here are ones that I think are talked about and I think are popular, but I don't think they're talked about enough, and I don't talk about them enough. And the first one is a graphic novel, and that is Rat Queens. This has so many different types of women in it. It has like different species of women, but also different races, different types of people. It's just very diverse, and it's a really good fantasy world. It's about these women who are they take on tasks and stuff, and they're sort of like a guild, and it's really, really good, and the art is beautiful. Next is The Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz, and it is a prequel to the Disney Descendants movie. Read this first because it's so good, and I loved reading it in that order. I think I got a lot more out of the movie because of that, and I really, really enjoyed that. And it's about the kids of villains, and it's really good. Next is The Queen of the TEARLIng by ERIKA Johansen, and I think this is a good one to start with because it's got a little bit of magic in it, a little bit of fantasy world that you've got to be explained, but it's really good in the fact that it's not all thrown at you all at once. It's sort of dabbled throughout the novel, and it's not info dumping at all. And yeah, I really enjoyed the character of the main character. I've forgotten her name, but I really loved her, and I loved her family dynamic that she had. Next is The Bone Season, and this one I read in like one day, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I've not continued on with the series. It's about a clairvoyant, and it's a world where clairvoyants are banned, and there's like a different ranking of clairvoyants. I don't really remember a lot about it, so I'm gonna have to read a recaptions page on it if I do decide to go on to the Mind Order. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I don't really know why I haven't carried on, and I wish I'd carried on before when I remembered everything about the book, because that would have been a lot better. Next is Clariel, which is a really, like, the Sabriel series is a really popular series with people for children, and I never heard of it when I was a child, and I've not heard a lot of people talk about Clariel. It's the prequel to the Sabriel series. I've not read the Sabriel series, but you can read this on its own because it is a prequel, and it's set like, I can't remember how many years, but a lot of years before, so like the characters don't appear in both, so it's just set in that world, I think. And yeah, it's really, really good. Its magic is a bit like, it's not really used because the main character doesn't really like the magic, so it's about the world and her struggles rather than magic, and I really liked that. Next is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, which is a retelling of 1001 Nights. I really loved this one. It was one of my favourites of the year, and I hadn't been expecting that. It's about a girl who, this king, has a new bride every night, and he kills her in the morning, and this girl volunteers to be his wife, and lasts more than a night. That's all I'm gonna say, but that's like what the normal 1001 Nights story is, but just a retelling of that, and it's really good. The romance was brilliant in it as well, and it's sort of like Warner in the Shadowy series, where you're not supposed to fall for him, but you keep falling for him, and you're just like, why are you so nice when you're so evil? Yeah. And the last one I've got to talk about today is Zeros by Scott Westerfeld. I buddy read this with Mel, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's about a load of kids with superpowers, and they call themselves the Zeros. It's really good, and I'm not going to say much more than that, but it's sort of like the TV serial Misfits, which I'm currently rewatching, and it's sort of like that, and I really, really enjoyed that about it. So that was my monthly recommendations. Comment down below any fantasy books that you recommend to me, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.